Thank you guys so much for joining me here once again. I hope you're having a great week. I hope you're having a great day. I hope you're having a great life. I hope this year has been great for you. I hope that you're getting everything you've ever wanted in your whole life. And I appreciate you being here. Thank you for watching. If you're listening to this, thank you for listening as well. I am very excited about today's episode. I got to sit down with one of my best friends, a guy that I pretty much literally have watched his entire career from start to now. He is a stand-up comedian. He is an incredible actor. He's a character actor. He's a producer. He's the owner and I guess head person, I don't know his title, at the Laughing Viking Studios that are in Toronto, Ontario. And this is actually where we filmed the interview. If you know him, you probably love him. If you don't know him, you're probably about to love him. He's appeared on countless television shows. He's been in movies. He has appeared all across Canada in performing stand-up comedy. He's done live theater. And he used to be an insurance salesman, which absolutely means nothing, but that's what he did. And then he realized that sucks and he wanted to be a stand-up comedian. So he literally kind of quit his job and got into stand-up comedy. Him and I worked on a TV show in London, Ontario several years ago. And when I started this podcast, he was one of the first people I wanted to have on. He might have actually been the first interview we did ever, because we did a few, quite a while ago. And I think he was the first one. And you guys are absolutely going to love this gentleman. He is one of my favorite people. He is a fantastic comedian. And please enjoy Lars Classington.
This is history. Thank you for having me.
No problem, man. Thanks for being here. Lars Classington, obviously an actor, comedian, all of that stuff, but not your real name. Lars Classington
correct.
is not your real name.
Correct.
Your real name is Joe Larson.
Joseph Frederick
Joseph
Larson.
Frederick
Why'd you
Larson.
laugh at my real name?
Because, first of all, I think just Frederick is I just find Frederick funny. Don't you?
I'm thinking of going to Joey Freddy, I think is what I want to switch to. Joey Freddy.
Joey Freddy? Are you
joking.
You all right? Oh, my God. See, I think that's a sign that Joey Freddy isn't a good idea.
No, I want to be Joey Freddy, a crooner. Like, all right, ladies and gentlemen, up next to the lounge, it's Joey Freddy. And I come out, I'm like, hey, I'm Joey Freddy. No?
No.
Huh?
Lars fits.
Okay.
Like when I met you as Lars Classington.
Right.
And thought that was your real name.
Right.
I had just met you as Lars, I think, and thought, yeah, you're
right.
clearly a Lars, and then found out later your name is Joe.
And you were very disappointed and angry and distrustful of me.
I was very disappointed. I wasn't angry, but I was very disappointed your name wasn't Lars, but you fit Lars more than Joe.
It's not a secret. Right? It's not like a secret identity.
No.
For the
stage
record.
name, right?
Yeah.
Lars Classington.
Yeah.
But first of all, I want to know a little bit about Joe. Tell me about Joe.
Joe was born in Orillia, Ontario.
Okay.
Real clean cut kid, country boy.
Yeah.
Actually, I wasn't born in Orillia, Ontario. Well, I was. The hospital was Soldiers Memorial Hospital in Orillia, Ontario. Also home to Stephen Leacock, Brian Orser, and Gordon Lightfoot.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
And I would
company.
say I'm the perfect combination of those three.
Yeah.
Stephen Leacock, a comedy writer. Gordon Lightfoot, a singer-songwriter. And Brian Orser, a successful figure skater with grace. And
that's what I think about. When I think about Lars Classington, I put all three of those together, sure. The name, Lars Classington.
Right.
Obviously, your last name, Larson. Right?
Yes.
But I love the story of how you got the name Lars Classington.
Right. How did I get it?
Well, first of all, you went to university in London, right?
Right.
So
I went to Western.
You went to Western to take, which I also find funny.
Kinesiology. Which
right?
I really, at the time, I was like, I don't know. I like sports. I'm good at science.
Right.
I heard there's 7 girls to 1 guys at Western. My buddies
Really?
were going there. That was always like the urban myth, and it was a party school. So in my head, I was just like, I'm just going to spring
That was
break.
how you chose the school?
Yeah, those were my three factors. Well, how old are you? I'm 18, 19. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Here's my curse. I'm pretty good at everything. So I was like straight A student. Wasn't an obvious choice. I was good at like every subject that I tried at, and I tried at most of them because I don't know, you're supposed to. I
guess, yeah.
So
That's
when
what
I
I've heard.
high school, I was like, saw the guidance counselor, and I'm like, well, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm good at like sports. I like sport. It was basically I like sports. I'm interested in science. I heard there's 7 girls to 1 guy at Western.
Right.
And my 2 best friends want to go to Western as well. So done deal.
Of course, right. And your 2 best friends and I think more people lived in a house, right? At some point you got a house.
Yeah. Classic off-campus like debauchery house.
Right. And you were a ladies' man, pretty much. Like you were good with girls. There's pictures I've seen where you look like one of the Backstreet Boys.
Right.
Right?
I was
that time.
I had frosted tips.
Yeah.
I had little hoop earrings. I knew how to wear a shiny dress shirt to the bar.
Yeah.
I looked like at the time. Yeah, I looked like a Backstreet Boy / like what's the movie? What's Will Ferrell's movie? Baby, don't hurt
Roxbury?
me. Yeah,
Night
the
at the
Roxbury.
Roxbury.
I was like a Night at the Roxbury guy.
Right. And so you are bringing home some girls, right? Time after time.
I don't know about time. Hey.
The story I heard was night after
Don't paint
night.
me as toxic masculinity
Not
type
now.
guy. It wasn't night
This
after.
isn't you today.
Right.
This isn't current day.
Well, then for the record, it wasn't always. I wouldn't bring
This
them
is Joe
home.
Larson we're talking about.
It would be
right.
It would be
This isn't Lars Classington here that we're talking about. We're talking about Joe Larson.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, it was Richmond.
Who's dead? I think Joe Larson is dead, right? Can we all agree
in most,
that Joe Larson
it's
died?
still inside on
Come
days where
you have not been a Joe. I've known you now over 10 years.
Thank you.
Never have I seen a Joe.
Wow.
Not one time.
Wow.
No offense to any Joe out there either,
Right.
but
Right.
you're not a Joe. You're Lars.
It's funny you're saying all this right at a time where I'm like, should I go from The Rock back to Dwayne Johnson?
No. No.
Okay.
Not
All
at
right.
all, man. Lars Classington, why are you even thinking about that? Why would you
I
even
don't know.
think to
Just
change
because
that?
I'm like, what's my real truth? Like, but is my real name my real truth? Like,
No.
what does that
Is
mean?
Lars
It's just-
Classington not more true to you than Joe Larson?
I don't know. I'm so
Do you
confused.
even? I'm curious. Seriously, do you even respond if somebody says Joe? If you were in a crowded place and somebody
Right.
went Joe, would you even flinch?
I mean, it would be probably be a small flinch, but I would never be expecting it. It's only like university and pre people or like a doctor's office where someone's using my legal name.
Right.
You know?
But if you're in public and you don't know who
I would never be expecting
is being
it to
yelled
be Joe,
at, you wouldn't
unless
turn
I was
and
at
go,
my
yes?
hometown. No,
right,
I wouldn't.
Exactly. So that's not your truth anymore.
Right,
But if you heard Lars,
Right.
immediately you would
Yeah.
turn and be like, yeah,
So
it's
what-
obviously me.
What was the question?
Sorry, we're getting to how you got the name, which is
Oh,
you were
yeah.
living in this house.
So it was Richmond Row. Let's give some context here.
Yeah.
It was university, and for me, Western was a party drinking school. So it was basically like
7 girls to 1 guy.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I mean, it was almost. I mean, it could have been every day of the week if you wanted to, as far as going out.
Sure.
It was like classic, like pre-drink. Cab's here. We all roll in a cab, then we go downtown, and you just would drink till 2 a.m. until you're like blackout drunk, and then you get.
Of course.
And then you'd go home with a girl one night, or a girl would come home with you another night. And,
Right. And now you had a good string,
and
though.
your buddies. I did all right. Yeah, nothing crazy.
But the
like
time
nothing
you
crazy.
got the name, the Lars Classington was one of the roommates. You
Right.
came up with a girl like night 4 or something, and they said, "Look at you, classy Lars Classington."
Yeah, I think,
right?
and I think in this case it was like, and we are way over glorifying this right now because it's usually called the walk of shame the next day. But
Of course.
I mean, I wasn't feeling shame. I was feeling like, oh, I had a crazy night last night. I had the best time with a beautiful woman who I danced the night away at, and woke up the next
You
day.
dance the
and-
night away at? You dance at
With.
women? How does that work? You really were night at the Rocks,
The
burning
women
her.
stand there and I dance at them. I just dance how you like this. I'm dancing. It's coming at you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like on this particular thing, I came home and I would kind of get clapped in. Again, very like very frat boyish, immature-ish, but classic stuff.
Again, we're talking about Joe Larson,
Right,
and we're talking about in
right.
university.
But we're also talking the birth of Lars Classington, so there's some blurred lines there.
But
so.
hey, we all change from birth.
Right. So I come home wearing bar shirts, so I'm wearing like jeans and like still got my frosted tips and but looking a little more disheveled. And then my buddies would like clap me in on a Sunday morning.
Right.
And my one buddy he'd look at me and he'd be like, "Ooh, look at you, Lars Classington." And he was used in a tone of like Ron Burgundy or like what's his name? Hugh Hefner.
Hugh Hefner.
Yeah, it was like an extra persona. It was like a ladies' man persona that was like
classy
thrust
Lars
upon
Classington.
me.
Yeah, right.
Classy Lars Classington.
And that's the birth.
But I do keep it classy.
And then so that was the birth of Lars Classington. Lars started because your last name was Larson. And you look like a Lars, pretty much, right? That's how you got the name Lars Classington. Mm-hmm. But after university, Joe Larson, still Joe Larson, what career path did you go in after university?
Well, the classic comedian entertainer career path of insurance sales is what I went into.
But at this point, you're not acting, you're not doing stand-up, you're not doing any of that.
And I wasn't doing kinesiology either. So I finished university.
Graduate with a degree.
With an honors degree in kinesiology, 85%. And the original intention was when I finish, I can do medicine, I can do chiro, I can do physio, maybe I can be a gym teacher, who knows.
Right.
But I got interested in business, and I also I think I read a Rich Dad, Poor Dad book or something, so I kind of got interested in finances and money and stuff. And one of the things he said in that book was learn sales, and then I had an opportunity to work in sales with a financial services company, an insurance company, meeting with clients, sitting down with families, talking about their financial future needs and signing them up for insurance packages.
Right.
That's what I did in the year. In the year off, I decided, okay, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. Basically, I graduated. I'm like, okay, I graduated, but what the fuck does that mean? Like, what do I really want to do? Am I going to spend 4 years in med school? Am I going to do chiro? I thought about naturopathic medicine as well because that was like it was like a trend or something.
Right.
But then I just decided to take the year off completely. I'm like, fuck it, I'm just going to live a year of life. And then in that year, I decided to get a job just doing not a non-student job because I had worked like bar jobs and I worked at a beach volleyball place in university. So I was doing like fun student jobs, but I was like, I'm going to go to a professional job and make some real money.
Right.
And then I ended up doing that for like 9 years, 10 years.
Insurance.
Yeah.
Selling insurance.
Well, I worked hard, so I got good at it, and then I ended up being promoted, and I trained other people, and then I moved to Alaska to do it.
Which is another thing, which is crazy. So now you're getting successful, making a shitload of money.
I mean, for a bachelor, not a shitload. I don't think I ever made less than $75,000, but I was 23 at the time, so.
Right. So like crazy money for
like
that
75
age.
to 90. I remember there was never a time where I would like be wondering in my head, do I have enough money to pay for this swipe at this store? Like that level kind of thing.
So you work your way up, and then they want you to run your own office, right? Where you go to Alaska to do this. Your choice?
They gave me a short list of small market U.S. countries. I'm dual citizen, or small market U.S. cities. I'm dual citizen with the States through my mom. And so it was like Boise, Idaho, Butte, Montana, Fargo, North Dakota, and then Anchorage, Alaska. So in my head, I'm like, if I'm going to go to buttfuck nowhere, I'm going to go to real buttfuck nowhere. And Anchorage also seemed like an adventure to me. Like it seemed cool.
Right.
So I packed up all my stuff in the back of a Hyundai Elantra and drove nine days from London, Ontario to Anchorage, Alaska. It was the whole trip. But I stopped for a week in Winnipeg for corporate like management training. And then my brother met me in Calgary and drove the last 4 days through the Arctic.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you get there to run your own. Your office.
I had. This is actually crazy that we're even talking about this compared to my current life. But They had leased an office space for me. I had rented an apartment, kind of sight unseen, and I was arriving like a troop.
How did you find the apartment?
A troop being deployed. I fucking Googled on the internet, Anchorage, Alaska apartments, and they had
So it wasn't at the time where you found it in like a newspaper?
No, it wasn't like sight unseen. No, this was 2002. So I graduated 2001, and in 2002 went to Alaska for 3 years.
Wow.
2002 to 2005.
So you're there for 3 years. You're leading. You're the leader.
I'm the leader. I was running the state of Alaska for Fortune 500 life insurance company. So which was amazing because anytime that there was.
But you're the manager.
I'm the man.
You're the leader. You're the guy.
Yeah.
And we do have video of this. So for video people, I want you to look at this guy. That guy was running an insurance office, except it wasn't this guy.
Right.
It was.
I was in a suit.
Let's show a picture of Joe Larson. It was this guy. It's this guy. Yeah.
Yeah. I was hiring, literally doing the interviews. One man show at the beginning. I was doing the interviews. People coming in looking for jobs.
Right.
Then I would have to hire them if they were appropriate. Then I would.
What was your interview like? What? I can't even imagine you interviewing somebody without it turning into like a party or something.
The company uses it definitely wasn't a party. It was like scripted, like not scripted verbatim, but like bullet points. Like there was protocol for everything.
How serious were you?
Pretty serious.
Give me just pretend you're playing the character and I'm coming in and I want a job. How would you have done it?
So Jeff, just to be straight up with you, people who succeed here work really, really hard. Like this is not a job that you can do part-time. You need to be able to commit to this. So on a scale of 1 to 10, really, what are you looking to commit to?
Wow.
It was 4. Pretty serious.
What if somebody said 4?
I would legit end the interview.
Right then.
Or I would at least be feigning to end it so that you would have to save it.
Did you ever have to fire someone?
People would normally let themselves go before they fired them. Like they would kind of fire themselves
because they knew this just isn't my.
It was performance based as well too. So it was like they weren't. If you weren't selling, you weren't getting paid. So if you were, which usually comes down to a numbers game for most people who are fail in sales. Assuming you have a decent product that you believe in, and you have a work ethic. Normally, like it works out. Like the sales companies have systems, but people would just not be interested or not care or not learn it or be lazy or whatever, and then I'm not making money, so they would just quit.
So you never had to call anybody in?
No, it wasn't like you're fired. No. It was quite the opposite. It was usually me trying to motivate and pump people up because they weren't having success, and I'm trying to give them like motivational speeches and sales speeches and like what's going on. Let's look at your schedule. Let's look at your systems and processes, like literally sitting down, recording their presentation and going like verbatim through their presentation, tweaking things, trying to figure out like, are you being a weird human being with people? Like sales is about connecting with people and having a good time and them trusting you. So if you're doing like weird things, like there's a science to it and an art to it.
Right.
It's a lot like stand-up, actually.
Sales.
I think so.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of similarities. I think you can definitely use sales in comedy, and you can most certainly use comedy in sales. So they really go hand in hand.
The biggest thing that I took from the sales thing is just rejection. Like hearing it was. I worked for 10 years in a company where I only got paid on results. I've never, as an adult, had a salary, so I only get results. Like that was it. So you don't sell something, you don't get paid, which is very similar to the freelance nature of stand-up and acting. It's like if you don't book a gig, you don't get paid. So, and tons of people say no to you. So I feel like I was prepped for it.
And you're 23 years old, leading this office.
Oh yeah.
Did you have anybody that you hired that resented how young you were?
I don't know if they resented it. I feel like they might have been surprised. I don't think they resented it because I would think I was pretty professional and very helpful. Like maybe people might have thought they could run it better, but I was.
And they all call you Joe.
Right.
Right? Like if somebody there was like, who is your manager?
Joe, sir, boss, sir.
Did they call you sir?
Sir, of course.
No,
joking.
You didn't make them call you sir. No. But they knew you as Joe.
Right.
Were you funny?
Yeah.
Were you fun or funny?
No,
not at the office.
In retrospect, I would have been more successful had I been. I kind of put on a corporate act of like, got to be like formal and integrity and like professional, but I think that I didn't connect with employees and people enough because of that. Like I kept it too formal. I think most people that I worked with would be like, I can't believe that you're this guy and you were this guy.
Yeah,
like
that's what I was going to ask. So the people that work for you, they would
to get to that.
Has any of them reached out to you from Alaska, like not from Alaska, but that you worked with, going, I can't believe you're doing comedy? Or
there's been people from the company message me and like well wishes and stuff. Nobody that's been like blown away by that, but no one from Alaska, because I don't know that they would know how to connect with me.
At the end of your day in Alaska, like when you're done and you go home, do you get to be Lars then, or are you like, are you going home prepping for the next day?
Yes.
Okay.
That's actually a good question, because when I was in Alaska, because I was so isolated, all my friends were back in Ontario here. So it was this was 2002, 2005, which is pre-YouTube at the time, or like just early YouTube, but pre-Facebook, pre-social media. So I bought a webcam and I started making stupid videos. I remember seeing Dane Cook was just starting to blow up there, but that was because he was doing, like, his videos were going viral of him doing stand-up, and he was on MySpace and all this shit. So it was like I was starting to see people doing things online.
Right.
So I bought a webcam and was made like funny dance videos. I have a crazy hamster dance video. Like before I did stand-up, the videos on YouTube of me are just me. Literally, there's one of me in the office doing a ridiculous dance to the hamster dance that had, like, at the time, like 5,000 views.
The hamster dance?
The hamster dance.
That you created this?
No, it's like a song.
Oh,
it's
it was
like a dance song.
Okay. 5,000 views. Was that 5,000 views you got?
Yeah, I mean, it was just a stupid video, but I think the original thing was like, where was the transition from? Like when I went home, you asked me when I went home at night, who was I, Joe or was I Lars?
Yeah, did you get to be Joe or Lars? Yeah.
Well, I'd usually go home and I'd make stupid videos. So yeah, it was Lars. I would go home and I'd make silly internet videos. One was just me with a rubber band ball, and it was like rubber band ball, rubber band ball, rubber band ball, rubber band ball, rubber band, and it was just me, like, ridiculously, kind of in the vein of like some stupid Tom Green video, which is hilarious, but just me fucking around with a rubber band, and then I would just send them back to my buddies and get kicks out of like being the funny guy with my buddies. So it was like the birth of the inkling of like, I want to do this kind of stuff.
This episode of Leeson Learned is sponsored by the Big Fish Steak and Lounge in Sarnia, Ontario. One of my personal favorite restaurants in the world. I was going to say in the country, but no, in the world. They have some of the greatest food I have ever had. Every single time I eat there, I think to myself, it will never get better than what I have just eaten. And the next time I go back, they top it once again. It's that good. If you live in the Sarnia area, make sure you book your reservation for lunch or dinner, or hell, book your reservation for both right now. Do it tonight. What are you going to cook for dinner tonight? Probably something awful. Don't do that. Head on over to the Big Fish Steak and Lounge. If you don't live in Sarnia, I suggest you make a trip down just for the food, or if you're going to be in the area, stop in and have one of the greatest meals you will ever have. This episode is also sponsored by the Car Lot Etc. in Sudbury, Ontario, where they make buying your next vehicle very, very easy. Let's say you go online, you find a vehicle that you want to test drive, but you can't quite make it in. No problem at all. They will bring the vehicle to you so you can take that test drive right from your own home. They do have the largest used truck inventory in the north. They also have the best selection of cars, SUVs, and vans. If you're like me and your credit is, let's say, not great, that's no problem. They do have options for everyone. You can also trade in your vehicle. They offer the best trade-in value in the north. So head on over to the website, thecarlot.ca, and book a test drive right now. This episode is also sponsored by MVP Properties. For all of your property management needs in southwestern Ontario and the GTA, big or small, these folks do it all. From helping you find great renters for an investment property to large-scale property management, MVP Properties is a complete solution property management provider based out of the Kitchener-Waterloo area. Problems with your current property manager? No problem. Give them a call. They'll be happy to give you great service at a reasonable rate. Visit mvpproperties.ca or call toll-free 1-844-284-RENT. That's 1-844-284-7368 or locally at 226-499-4687. This episode is also sponsored by Laughing Viking Studios in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Laughing Vikings is a digital media studio and live entertainment production company turning delusions into reality. Located in the heart of Toronto's TV and film district, the studio is the ideal home for creators, actors, podcasters, photographers, and filmmakers who need a convenient and flexible space to create. Book your studio time for self-tapes, podcasting, film shoots, photo shoots, casting sessions, workshops, and rehearsals, and ask about their memberships. Visit laughingvikings.com today.
Are we back on the podcast?
We're back with Lars Classington. So you're in Alaska, 23 to 26. You're there for 3 years?
Yeah, it's 2002 to 2005. So I was 20 through 24 to 27.
24 to 27. And then you moved back to Ontario.
Yes, I drove back to Ottawa, and I lived in Ottawa for 6 months. And then the original office that I started in London needed a manager to help run it. So I moved back to London.
Back to London.
Back to the scene of the original crimes.
And to also manage? Are you still managing them?
Yeah. I'm helping run an office. So on the daily or a weekly schedule is I'm in the mornings I'm doing interviews, group interviews, like information sessions about the company and compensation and management track and benefits and all that kind of stuff. Then final interviews where I'm making a decision. Then running new training sessions, sales training, and then in the afternoon and evening, I'm out on field appointments in clients' homes at their kitchen tables with a new agent, like shadowing me, and then eventually I'm shadowing them. So it was a lot of work. It was like 60. It was addictive because it was performance paid. So the harder you work, the better you got paid. So it was amazing for that. It was a growth opportunity if you're hungry and savvy and like type A personality and go after that kind of stuff, you do really well. And I did, but then it was also like, the fuck really am I doing with my life right now? So I stopped being motivated.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's around this time when you start getting unmotivated.
Right.
By that.
It would take like a quarterly sales manager meeting. Like someone would fly in from HQ to like give me the real rah, and I'd see what he has and see his vision, and he's done so well in the company, and I would get remotivated for like another 2 weeks, and then I'd be like, yeah.
Right. And so it's around this time that you try stand-up for the first time?
I answered an ad on Kijiji that said, "So you think you're a comedian?"
Right.
Yeah.
So you're unmotivated, you're doing this thing, but making good money. You're managing and working all these hours, so you must be making like really good solid money when you're motivated.
Yeah.
But you're noticing this isn't really what I want to do.
It wasn't fulfilling.
Right.
It seemed like a grind. It seemed like the whole thing.
Are you still making the videos that you were making in Alaska?
A little bit. I had just started. So in September of 2009, I mentioned Dane Cook earlier, who I remember seeing his stuff, and that was like, oh, fuck, he's hilarious, and he's doing a lot on the internet. So that was kind of like the key to me starting to think about videos.
Right.
But then it was John LaJoie doing his like funny rap videos. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I've always had a little bit of musicality in me and my family and stuff. My brothers are musicians, as you know. So I made 2 funny like white idiot rap videos called "Sexy White Guy" was one of them, and the other one was "My Balls."
My balls, right?
Who built the Eiffel Tower? My balls. Who's got superpowers? My balls. Who's gonna buy you flowers? My balls. Who's tougher than Jack Bauer? My balls. My balls. My balls.
And right after that was like in my head. This is how what's the word? Like this is how cocky or cocksure. Like when I started show business, I wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna dabble in this. I'm like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna become super famous, and I'm gonna do, like I was like instantly like. So I started doing the YouTube videos, and then I was like, well, if I'm gonna get famous on YouTube, sooner or later I'm gonna need to know how to like perform live and be on stage. So I better get on stage at like a comedy club in Yuck Yucks. Like in my head, I'm like, I need to have all this stuff.
Interesting.
I need to have these boxes checked, because it was more my instinct to get it. Like my reason to get into show business wasn't really stand up per se at the beginning. It was Saturday Night Live and Kids in the Hall and In Living Color and Mad TV. It was all sketch comedy that I was more so exposed to as a kid. Right. I sort of like knew of stand up, but I never saw it live when I was a kid. So there was the videos, and at first in my head I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna be a YouTube star like John Lajoie. This is gonna be easy. And then I stumbled upon that Kijiji ad, and that was for an amateur night at Yuck Yucks. So I did the amateur night, but then I got hooked on stand-up and just that electricity of live audience and live stage and just being high energy bull in a china shop. So then I just never stopped doing stand-up for the first 3 years. I mean, I've never stopped, but when I met you, that's when I was like hooked on stand-up.
Right.
Yeah.
And so for a while, you were still doing the insurance stuff during the day. You were doing stand-up and writing and stuff at night.
Barely. So I stepped out of my management position in 2009 so that I wasn't responsible for anyone else, because what was also grinding at me is I was in a leadership position which required me to be there to do interviews. I had other supervisors reporting me. I had like other admin staff that reported to me. And when I hired someone new, if I didn't show up on a fucking Monday, they wouldn't get trained, which legit meant that they wouldn't make money. And I know in the back of my head that they're like trying to make a go at this new career. So I felt like guilt. There was a burden of taking care of other people. So I stepped out of that and was like, I don't want to be responsible for other people.
Right.
Because I'm not, and part of that was because I'm not fully into this. So I don't want to be the guy pumping you on like, this is the best career path for you, when in my head I'm like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. But because we work commission, I could set my own schedule. So I would work like a week out of the month, go fucking real hard, set a ton of appointments, make like $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 in a week, 10 days, 2 weeks. And then I would take 2 weeks off and just shenanigans. So that was the last 2 years. As I was transitioning, I would work like a week or 2 out of the month. And then the rest of the time, just like living life kind of thing.
Right. And that's when you started really getting more into the stand-up.
That's when I started doing stand-up.
How early on for you was London Tonight, which was a show that we did in London for a couple of years on local television? How early on into your comedy thing was that?
Insanely early on.
Yeah.
Like ridiculously early on. Like so ridiculous that when all of this happened, when I met you and that happened, it was ridiculous instant validation for me that like I chose the right thing. Mind you, it was a local, it wasn't like where I was on a national TV thing, but I started stand-up October 2009 and met you, I think, that Christmas. But by February 2010, I was a writer, sidekick announcer, sketches on a local late night comedy talk show.
That was on every night.
That was on every night and made us local celebrities in London, so that every fucking where we went out, people would recognize us. People were wearing the t-shirts with our names on them in London. We were sponsoring and hosting events. So I went from like incognito Joe Larson insurance guy to fucking Lars Classington in like 6 months, which was amazing, and it was, in one sense, it was validation that I'm gonna do the, like, it was like, oh, I'm in the right spot kind of thing, because I wonder if I hadn't had that instant hook, would I have, like, maybe I would have fallen back into the corporate world or whatever. So yeah. So I have you to thank for that. So shout out to Jeff Leeson right now. So we met at writers meetings where we were writing monologue jokes.
No, I originally met you.
Right. Yeah.
I have met you. Okay,
right.
Here's what's
okay,
interesting.
You tell
is
this.
I saw
you tell this.
At Yuck Yucks.
Right.
And you were this like insane ball of energy that you came out doing Booyah.
I used
Remember
to
that?
just come out bull in a china
Booyah!
shop. I'd be like, oh, I would just whip the crowd into a frenzy, and I'd be like, yeah, booyah, booyah. Like, I don't know.
Nothing,
like it was,
nothing really, like there was nothing
it was my impression of a comedian
funny about it. Like where you could go where anybody else would get a laugh off of it.
Right.
It was the way you were doing it and the energy of it,
right.
where you couldn't help but laugh.
It
was this massive guy with long hair who was like, just seemed fucking insane.
Right.
Just seemed like insane, you know?
Right.
And that's why the fact
So
that I found out that you sold insurance,
right.
and you had this whole
whole
other life.
Easy fella.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Was so fascinating because the guy I saw originally was this guy who just came out and was like, I thought was like just rattling tables person. With how loud you were in that mic. Right. Like it wasn't, I wasn't even on the show. I was just in the crowd.
Taken aback.
Where I'm like, man, I don't think I've ever seen anything like that.
Right.
You know, it was so, it was like a hype man at a concert that they told to go do stand up, and he was doing what he knew first and then got in, because I don't even remember what you did. I don't remember any joke. I don't remember any of the like later stuff. I just remember thinking like, that guy is gonna be something because based on energy. Right. And so I knew you as Lars, and then we met at the taping, I think, of the original show that had a different host on it, which is where we originally met each other.
Hilarious. So you were on London Tonight with Jeff Leeson. How you became the host of London Tonight with Jeff Leeson is you were the first guest on the very first episode, which wasn't London Tonight with Jeff Leeson. It was London Tonight with another guy. Yeah. You were the first guest, and I was the pre-show warm-up stand-up guy. So I would come up, like, do this hype man.
I thought you were the comedy guest, no? You were the warm-up?
I wasn't on the first show. You were the first guest.
Oh.
I was a warm-up guy. Then by the second episode, you were the host, and I was the announcer. Right. But off camera, I was just off camera into the mic. And then, like, third show, I was on a mic, like Ed McMahon, Andy Richter, and then we never looked back past then. But interesting side note, and I only think about this now, but the shit that I would do, like, if you're comparing Joe Larson versus Lars Classington, or like Crazy Energy versus like normal guy, when I was not doing stand-up, that's who I was when I would go out at night partying and drinking with my buddies. So I'd get like fucking super drunk, super rowdy, and just be life of the party, like up on tables, starting chants.
I remember you getting kicked out of a bar in London once for going on a picnic table.
I got kicked out of fucking Barney's on Canada Day for getting up on the top of the picnic table and trying to start a fucking group O Canada. With everybody. And they were like, no, you can't stand on the fucking picnic tables. Like, it's fucking Canada Day. And all the people love me right now. Like, we were like mid Canada Day, and I'm like, you're hauling me out of here? So I love Barney's, but fuck you, Barney's, for that night. You were in the wrong that night, Barney's. Barney's is a beloved bar in London if you've ever been there.
Proudly not a sponsor of the show now. Either.
No, they should be a sponsor. They should be a sponsor.
Not
they
now.
had to do what they had to do. I know that I had to be kicked out because it was a safety issue. But, I mean...
Was it? You're fine.
Sometimes you got to pick the cool moment over safety.
Yeah, definitely. So when you're doing the insurance, you're playing this guy at night.
Right.
Now,
so at
all
night,
of a sudden,
that was like get out of my shell, and I got addicted to that.
Right.
But an interesting thing about when I started stand-up... it's funny that I say this because we are drinking a rum and coke right now, but that's because it's a Saturday afternoon and I haven't seen you in a while. But when I started doing stand-up, I made a conscious decision that I wouldn't, for the most part, like drink before shows and stuff so that I wouldn't fall into the trap of having to be drunk or only being comfortable being drunk. Because I'm like, if I want to do this at the max level, that means ultimately I should be wanting to do this every day. But if I need to be drunk every day to do that, that ends at a fucking, like, that doesn't end well, right? So I kind of like stopped drinking, but my antidote to drinking and partying and having fun was I just did all the shit that I would do on the streets, blackout drunk, on a stage sober, and it's the same. It's the same. So I would just go on stage for like 7 minutes and be like, woo, doing all this crazy character shit, and then that would be like, oh, that I flexed that muscle, and I don't have to be downtown being blackout drunk doing this tonight to get that kick of being that guy. You know?
Wow. Yeah, so that was your.
So in a way, in a little ways, comedy like. I mean, not that I still drink and I still party, but I party way like I was like, Western trained me. Like we were indoctrinated to be binge drinking, blackout drunk from the time you left your dorm to the time like last call when you lined up shots. Like that was culture for us. Like that was how you did your weekend. Like you went till you ran out of booze, till you got kicked out, till you ran out of money. And then hopefully you ended up back at home or at residence. And then the next day you'd pick up the pieces and figure it out and connect the dots with your buddies and look at your receipts. And you'd be like, oh, fuck, man, no, you don't remember being at Wendy's? No, you were at Wendy's and you were fucking throwing, like all these crazy stories would come back. Right. But it was all fucking debauchery. And all, yeah, it's crazy.
What I find very fascinating about you, in addition to a lot of this stuff, is when I met you, you owned a house.
Yeah.
You lived in the basement of that house and rented the rest of it.
Yeah, I owned a triplex.
And you had just started doing stand-up, just started getting in entertainment. This is when I first met you.
Right.
And you eventually basically sold everything you had.
Right.
And followed this crazy dream of entertainment. Like basically went all in, which I don't think I've ever seen someone do before. I don't think I've ever witnessed it.
Right.
I went all in from 14, but at I've never had anything. Right. You know what I mean? I've never really had anything where I had to like give it up.
Right.
You know?
Right.
You had this whole life.
Right.
That you had built up and all of these things that you had done, and then realized, oh, fuck, I don't care about any of this. I don't want any of this. This isn't even my life. I don't want to do any of this.
Right.
I want to go down this path, and gave up everything. You sold the house. You had a SUV, I think, right?
Yeah.
Sold that, moved into...
I scaled everything back. Yeah.
Did you move from the house to that wicked apartment downtown in London?
I lucked out.
Which was the greatest place probably ever.
Yeah. The Lars Loft.
The Lars Loft, yeah, which was insane. And the next time we have you on the show, we'll go through all the things that happened there. But what I wanted to talk about was the fact that you sold everything, which is not. Right. That's like the definition of all in. That's like, I'm doing this 100%.
Right.
And a lot of people don't do that.
Right.
When you were going through that, did it just feel right, or were you nervous? Were you scared? What was going through your mind as you're getting rid of everything?
It was a calculated ploy, and I'll tell you the full extent of it. So I sort of realized, I can't remember I don't know if I ever had an epiphany moment, but a couple things were, I went to see, this is going to sound crazy coming from me, giant white guy. Of
course.
But I went with my buddy Al, we'd call him Big Al because he's small, or Al the Bishop.
That guy.
Yeah, you know him. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. So we went to see Notorious, the Biggie story, which is about him on his rise, following his dream and all that stuff. And it was motivating. So we were driving home and I looked at Al and I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to quit my job and become a rap battler. which I didn't become a rap battler. Well, that was also.
Were you being serious, or was that a joke?
Not in a rapper terms, but it was like I want to do this stuff, and very 8 Mile-ish too. I think I watched 8 Mile and Notorious within like a week of each other. Okay. So for real. Yeah. So I wasn't going to be a rap battler, but it was like that idea of like I needed to do this. I do remember certainly having the feeling of when I started to do, like when I made the first YouTube video and then did stand up the first time, I distinctly had the feelings of I need to take a crack at this or it's going to bug me for the rest of my life. And I just didn't want to be one of those people who like dies on their deathbed and they're like, oh, I wish I had tried this one thing that I thought of forever of doing and never did it. So that was part of it. A little bit of it for sure was my brother. I'm youngest of 3, but my middle brother, James, died when he was 33. He was living in New York City. He's a musician. He was a producer. He was an agent, doing really well at the thing that he loved. And he was diagnosed with cancer at 32 or 33 and died doing what he loved, but never got to fulfill that. So that has always been in the back of my head.
And you're how old when that happens?
I was in Alaska when that happened. So I was just starting out the corporate life when that happened. So it wasn't like an instant thing. Like it was years later when I left the company.
And your mom also passed away.
So within a 2-year span, my mom died of cancer and my brother died like a year and a half later.
And that's again your early 20s. You're in your early 20s.
Yeah, it was actually the time I left Alaska, or the time I moved to Alaska. So my mom had passed. I went to Alaska within about a year of my mother passing away, and so a little bit of Alaska, in retrospect, was me sort of like a little bit of an escape or like a new adventure, like something to focus on. Like it's kind of a crazy thing to do for anyone, but I'm sure it was a little bit related to the fact that she died and I was like, our whole family's on tilt kind of thing. Like, what the fuck? Like, what are we going to do next kind of thing? So like, I'm going to go to Alaska, so that always, between my mom, that experience, my brother, I've always thought about that kind of stuff. But so what happened though, in the year that I was just an agent, not a manager, I was dabbling in it. But I was like, I need to do this full time. But what I had also been doing is at a certain point, I wasn't planning on leaving the insurance business, but I had great credit and I had loans. So I racked up on the times when I wasn't working, I racked up some debt on credit cards. And I had a tax return, like a Canada Revenue thing, come in where I owed more tax than I expected from the business side of things. So I had a choice on what direction I was going to go. Like, am I going to go back to the insurance company and do this full time, or am I going to go into comedy and showbiz? And one option was go work really hard at the insurance company and pay down some of the credit card debt, because I kind of lived for a little bit. I was like living on a little bit of credit card debt, living on some lines of credit. And what I decided to do, I was like, the fastest point A to B, like if I want to be in show business, this is what I'm going to do. I want to get here, A to B. And so what I did is I declared bankruptcy. So I would walk away from the credit card debt, but it also meant I had to give up the triplex. But in my head, I was like, let me simplify this, kind of cut all cords to things that could complicate my life and take me away from stand-up. And I got that apartment, trimmed back all my bills, so I had like, so that I could live on like $2,000 a month. And from the insurance company, I had about a $2,000 a month residual income. So that was the sort of like, when I started with the insurance company, I never knew that I was going to get into stand-up and acting, but I did know that part of the reason I worked at the insurance company was to get residual income. So you build up a book of business when people keep the policies, as long as they're still paying until they die, you get a paycheck. So when I left the insurance company, I simultaneously declared bankruptcy to absolve myself of debt and property, and just kind of like, there's a clean way of that. Otherwise, I probably would have had to work for another year or two, pay that down. And I knew that I had the residual income from the insurance company, so that I had about a $2,000 a month paycheck to float me. So I had my life's expenses paid for at that time. That wanes, so that has decreased. But in the meantime, now I make money from stand-up gigs and acting gigs. So that was kind of my like go-between so that I could quit cold turkey.
Right.
So I did like a life 180 kind of thing, which is a lot of people don't do that.
Most people don't do that.
I would suggest it.
And people that do that, a lot of times people do it with no residual income.
Right.
Where they fail at it because they haven't thought it out like that, or they weren't in something like that. So they end up quitting their job. They go into comedy. They don't make enough. Then they quit that because they're like, well, I don't make enough. Right. When really you did the right thing, which is, okay, make sure I'm covered financially,
right,
so I can really focus on this, and it doesn't matter,
right,
if I make zero or I make $100,000.
That's what it was.
It doesn't matter.
It was about figuring out. It was for me. It was, how can I do this for most of my time right now?
Right.
And I knew that I can't do it if I'm working 90 hours a week at an insurance company, and if I had more things, like when I had the triplex and a fancier car and all this like fancy suit lifestyle and fancy dinners and stuff. So I trimmed that all back. So I kind of had like the minimum. Like I had my cell phone, my rent, and cable. Like that was probably all I had. So I knew I didn't have to make too much.
And I'm really curious because my grandma died, as you know, unexpectedly out of nowhere. And when that happened, there was a real shift in my mind of like, wow, life really is short. Like everything you want to do, you better fucking do it, or you might not have time to do
100%.
it. You know, how much of making that decision and going all in, how much of that was affected by your brother and your mom passing at such a young age?
I think a decent chunk. It was more of an echo of that. Like it wasn't like those happened, because those deaths happened in 2002 and 3, and I didn't really I didn't start stand up till 2009, and then full time I wasn't doing. I moved to Toronto in 2012, so 2012 I was doing it full time. So yeah, but it was always on my mind, and it still is now. I mean, I would say I still, like most people, are chronically plagued with the thought that like we're way too slow with how we act on things. Like I have stuff that I'm just kind of doing now. Probably this podcast for you is something that's been an idea for like 5 fucking years.
Oh yeah.
But why didn't you start it before then? Like who knows? But there's still things right now. So I'm trying to speed up right now how quick I move from having an idea about something I want to do to just fucking doing it, instead of it being something that bugs me. So I'm getting better at it. But to answer the question, it was it was part of it. Maybe seeing other people. I think that's a big part. Seeing other people go for their like dreams and what they want to go after. That's part of my motivation now in doing it. Like it used to be like, oh, I want to be in cool things, and I want to be on stage, and I want to get the credits and make money and be a celebrity and do all that stuff. And now it's like that's, you know, some of that's okay, but that's kind of hollow. So now what like fires me up is I'll get messages from people like so happy you're doing so well, like love the example of following your dreams, or like saw the video about how you did this, like so proud of you, like you make me want to do this or that. Like it's other people, it's like motivating other people to do the same thing. Right. Yeah. We're getting emotional here. Yeah.
No, I like it. This is what we need to be.
And for real, like I mean that. Like that to me is, there's probably 2 things as a comedian, and you can relate to this, is A, you do it, you want to make the audience like in front of you laugh and have a good time and remove their stress, like for that 1 hour they're just having fun. Yeah. But then it's the other thing is like help people find their whatever their thing is. And I know at the end of your shows you always do that, like you always get like a little personal and talk about how like you love doing this and you followed your passion and you encourage people to do that. And I think that's it's almost more important, you know.
Way more important. Yeah. I had a guy when we were in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. This guy came up after a show, and he had just lost his daughter,
right?
Like a young kid daughter, right. and it wasn't even him actually; it was his friend who came up very emotionally and was like, "I just want you to thank you. You made my buddy laugh for the first time in 6 months," which is like, at the time we were in the middle of a tour and you're out there for so long and you're like,
right. You might have been thinking in your head, oh, fuck this fucking show, or like,
right.
Oh, man.
And it wasn't a well-attended show.
Right.
And I think I lost money on the show doing it, traveling, right? So all that's in my head. Right. And this guy comes up and immediately is like, oh, yeah, that's why we do this.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how much did you, like, any of those doubts or feelings of, like, man, why am I doing this? Or, like, those kind of, like, when you're, like, shit gigs or you're on the road or, like, you're like, fuck, I could just get a corporate job right now and just, like, take a deep breath and not have to, like, grind and gig. But then somebody says that and you're like, oh, fuck, I'm hooked.
Right.
My story for that is it was in Kitchener, I think, and it was a show. It was like a Wednesday night, Thursday night, like decent crowd, 50 people, good energy. And there was this lady in the crowd who was older, and sort of in the midst of crowd work, she kind of was dubbed like the Queen Mother kind of thing, just because everyone else was young, and there's this silver-haired lady, but very prim and proper, kind of looking like a queen. So she became part of my act a little bit. And at the end, her who I didn't know, her daughter comes up and she was like, oh, I wanted to thank you so much. We wanted to call her Betty, just for the sake of the story, but like Betty lost my dad passed away 3 weeks ago after a long and hard battle with cancer, and this is the first time we take her out, and so thank you for these laughs. And I'm just like, oh my God, like fuck, like,
yeah.
It's crazy.
And it just gives you, again, that like, oh, yeah, that's why we do
this.
Yeah,
right.
That's what this is for.
Yeah.
This isn't about money. This isn't about how many credits we have. This isn't about what TV show I'm on. This is about, like, you literally gave that person, like, a moment or even several moments or an hour of, like, relief and joy that they haven't had for a while, which is just unbelievable.
But I don't know that I ever thought of that at the beginning. Like, when you started early, was any part of you that? Or, I mean, the only thing I could relate to that is when you're a kid, and you probably have this because you were raised by your mom and grandmother, but there's a little bit of, like, you make your family laugh in times of, like, stress or sorrow or whatever like that. Like, if you're probably at some point your mom was upset, you would sense that and go crack a joke. Like, so there's a little bit of that. I could tell my
mom didn't like whatever she was doing during the day, or she was really stressed when she got home, and I would try to make her laugh. That was the first thing that was like, maybe I should try this. Right. You know?
But probably when you started stand-up, it was because you saw other comedians and you're like, ooh, I want to be like them. And it was a little bit
it just
like,
looked fun.
Right.
It was like, I can do something that is just fun and not get in trouble for it, and
you just
eventually
act out. That was what it was for me. That was legit what it was for me, because the other way I was acting out, I would get drunk and disorderly citations and get, like, thrown in the drunk tank if I didn't watch my step.
Right.
Which never happened, but probably should have. Like, the amount of times I was hooting and hollering in London.
Right.
But then you get to do it on stage. So for me, it's like I get to act like a fool on camera or on a stage, and that's crazy enough for me. And then, as you know, I'm kind of like, I would say I'm pretty chill in my regular, like, we're just hanging out in regular life, walking through a mall. We're not like, we're not attracting attention to ourselves. We're pretty, like, calm and collected, you know?
Yeah, typically. We're going to wrap things up here. So really quickly before we go, where can people find Lars Classington?
Hit me up for sure on Instagram at Lars Classington, or the studio that we're at, and my production company is at Laughing Vikings. Instagram stories is where I have the most fun. So if you just want to see what I'm doing on a daily basis and see, like, the mind of Lars, that's probably the best place. Facebook, probably Instagram and Facebook.
Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Appreciate it.
Lars Classington.
I love you, Jeff.
Love you too, buddy.
Huge thank you to my buddy Lars Classington for joining me here today. And thank you guys so much for joining me here today. I really do appreciate it. You have a choice. You had a choice. You had a choice of what you wanted to listen to or what you wanted to watch. And the fact that you took time out of your busy day, I assume it's busy, maybe it's not, but who knows? But to take the time to listen or to watch this, we certainly appreciate it. I certainly appreciate it. And we hope to see you again here next week. Thank you guys so much. Have a great week, everybody. Don't do anything fucking stupid. we got to have some sort of tagline at the end, you know? You got to sign off with something. So don't do anything fucking stupid. Makes sense, right?
Don't be a bitch.
Don't be a piece of shit. Hey, how about don't be a piece of shit? Ever thought of that?